approve the minutes from the last meeting?
I'll approve it.
Supervisor Beatty, thank you. And Supervisor Merlino on the second of minutes. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that passes. Thank you. Go ahead, Lexi, with your first request.
Okay, sure. So with COVID upon us, and talking to the auction company, we feel that we really should do some special guidelines for the auction this year. So attached in your packet is a resolution request to accept these or adopt these, COVID guidelines that we put into play for the people coming to the auction. So I don't know if anybody's had a chance to read over them. I could skim over them if you want, or hopefully you all took the time to review them.
Just quickly, I mean, it's to make sure that we don't have more than 50 people. And we're going to ask people to sign up in advance for the town where the property is located that they want to bid on. But if they have multiple towns, they can sign up for multiple towns. We just don't want everyone sitting in there all day long, especially if they only want to bid on, one or two properties that's in one town.
Right.
Anything else, Lexi?
No, the big thing is not being able to have more than 50 people in the courthouse at the time. So you have auction people in there, you have myself, usually the treasurer's in there. I know one of the assistant attorneys wanted to come this year. So, we're just limited when you only can have 50 people and being spaced out for the social distancing. So we just really want everybody to be aware. So if we pass these, they're going to go into the auction packet that comes out and be out there for people to be aware of this ahead of time.
Okay, great. Thank you. Brad, Supervisor McGowan?
Thank you, Chairman. Lexi, do we send out a letter? Maybe it's possible to advertise, who's plans on attending. And if the weather's good, can't we do it out on the front steps or?
Well, that's kind of hard to make a last minute decision like that because the auction company has to prepare ahead of time. They always bring a big screen for in the courthouse. It would just be really hard not knowing that until closer to the auction day what the weather's going to be. And to try to set that stuff up outside, it just makes it a little more difficult for them. And I don't know if we truly have the space right there here at the county. I mean, with traffic going by and traveling by, the noise from the traffic and trying to keep people's attention. I don't know. It wasn't anything we planned for, Brad.
Oh, no, and I understand that. I mean, how many, the courthouse, really, I think of auctioneers, if they, I understand the procedures we have to say, but, really, supposedly if you're within 6 feet, you all wear masks,
Yep, that's one of the
sanitizers. So, but how many do we normally get for a turnout?
Well, normally for a turnout, the place is packed. They line around the walls, all the seats are taken, but that's not going to be possible this year. So that's why we're trying to make them register for the individual towns that they're interested in. So that let's just say in the town of Bolton, there's 38 people that want to bid on property in Bolton, then all 38 people could be in there. If it was more than that, I don't know how we would handle it because we're only limited.
Lexi, maybe we need to plan in advance to have another room, like an additional courtroom where we stream in the video to let people bid from a second room if we really have more than 50 people bidding. But the other thing that we're going to do, which we always do, is make the packet of properties available for people to review prior to, and we'll make sure it's on the website. And this year, first year that we have a communications officer. So, I set our screen in the county went down, but it looks like the computer's still fine.
You're still there.
So with the communications officer, we'll make sure that he pushes that out through our social media and the news so that people really know in advance and can study that and figure out what properties they want. Supervisor really know.
Yeah, Lexi, just, what was the date again on that
The
auction?
date,
What's that?
the date is October 17th. It's the third Saturday in October, always.
All right, and my second question, I had somebody just ask me this weekend, when are those packets gonna be available for people to see?
Well, because we're kind of, delayed with running with things, we're hoping the package should be available by the 17th or 18th of September. We always try to have them out a month in advance. And so I planned on reaching out to Don Lehman and working with him to try to get this out there on social media for the county site. And plus the auction company always puts stuff in the newspaper as well, the local papers.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Supervisor Brown.
Yes, thank you again. Hey, another thing is saying we have the new, emergency building that, the equipment, if not everything is moved in there, that's a possibility of, using the big new building over there,
That's a good idea.
so.
We can look into that.
We have the option there. That's a large square foot area would adapt to people. And if you do it in segments of per town and get those people out that are, interested, and that way you're moving along. So we can have a time factor of, every town roughly around this time, blah, blah, blah. We can move the people and they can be in and out too. So, I mean, there's an option.
That building's completed? I was unaware of that. I'm sorry.
It's pretty close.
Yeah, I was just there myself, just this morning, it's got everything but the garage doors.
Great.
Okay.
Alexi, is your problem the size of the building or the fact that you only have 50 people?
Well, the fact that you can only have 50 people, so it doesn't matter really. I mean, I guess if it's outside, even then, can you really have a social gathering of more than 50 people?
No.
Right. So
I
I'm
agree
kind of
with that.
limited no matter what I do. It doesn't really matter whether it's inside or outside. And you have to remember that the auction company brings the auctioneer and, 5 or 6 members of his staff. I'm always there. I don't know if Treasurer Swan's attending this year, but he's always been there. And occasionally we get somebody from the county attorney's office. So again, we can, by the way, when I went over and looked at the seating, I think we can probably get 38 people in the seats, in the courthouse spaced out, with the social distancing. So you add that plus the auction company and myself and whoever else from the county attends, and you're at that 50 number. So, I mean, what Dennis is saying is true. I mean, there's nothing we can do. We're limited to 50 people.
If you do it by towns, I would assume Queensbury is huge, so you might want to split that in North Queensbury and South Queensbury.
Well, it all depends on what's left on the list, Dennis. We don't have a huge list this year. We have, I want to say it's like 26 or 28 parcels, if even that, going this year.
Total?
So, yeah, we don't have a huge auction this year. So the
No.
turnout may even be lower. I have 2 parcels up in Bolton Landing. 2 parcels in Chestertown. You know what I'm saying? It's only,
Yeah.
it's limited parcels. So we don't have, it's not like even for Queensbury, I mean, a bunch of those came out. So again, it's just a handful. It's not like we're having a big auction.
I don't think you're going to have a problem.
I agree. I think that we will be fine with the 50, and after each town, we're going to ask people to leave. And then the next town that's up for auction, we'll bring those people in that want to bid on that. And if we're not at that maximum capacity, we could say if somebody else wanted to come in, they could. But, you know, it's 50 for each town.
Sounds good to me.
Supervisor Beatty, do you have something? I saw.
I didn't understand you, Claudia.
No, Madam Chairman, no, I just have to leave in a few minutes for a doctor's appointment at 10 o'clock. But I wanted to mention with the septic law that I know we're going to be discussing today. I'm totally for that. And I think it's even good. Obviously, it's great to have the septic transfer law on the lake, but also I think for everyone, so that the homeowners are protected, potential buyers are protected, and everyone else is protected. And I just wanted to mention that because, again, I got to leave in just a few minutes. So,
Okay, you're in support of the septic transfer law.
yes, 100%.
All right, thank you, Supervisor Beatty. We'll note that when we jump over to that agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I do not have a motion yet for our special guidelines for the foreclosure. Yes, thank you, Supervisor Merlino, for the motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second. It's
Thank you,
Andrea.
Supervisor Hogan. I think we covered this one. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, that carries. Okay, Lexi, number 2, please.
Okay, number 2 should really be quick and easy. We have to amend Resolution 339 of 2019, which is our terms and conditions of sale. The only thing that is being amended is the buyer's premium. We, contracted with an auction company. We did the RFP back in the spring. So it's just changing from one auction company to another. The buyer's premium went from 6% to 5%. So we still have to, make the change to the terms by a resolution. So that's all we're doing with the second
I'll move that,
resolution.
Claudia.
Thank you, Supervisor Dickinson.
I'll second.
Thank you, Supervisor Hogan. The one thing I do want to mention, thank you, Lexi, for getting this updated for this year. The one thing I want to remind our bidders about is the provision that requires you to update the property and bring it into compliance with all state, county, and local standards within 24 months of the date of the deed. Just as a reminder, we added that a year or so ago.
Paragraph 6F.
All right. All those in favor of changing the terms regarding the buyer's premium, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that carries. Thank you. Okay, Lexi, next one.
Okay, so the last thing is under discussions. There is a parcel in the town of Stony Creek owned by a Lucas Blanchard. I had him fill out a last chance meeting request form because it's really the only way to get you guys the information all written in one place. So he does owe $3,488.19 right now. And he is prepared today to pay in full. I spoke to him this morning on the phone. And so he's really asking the committee if you would be willing to accept his payment today so that he could save his property.
Okay, I saw the treasurer just popped on, so I'm gonna see if he has any comments or thoughts on accepting this payment.
No, I don't have any comments on it. This is fine. If this is what the committee wants, just have him call my office. We'll make an appointment and take his payment.
Yeah, I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Okay, I've got Supervisor Stroud and Supervisor Merlino, and looks like Supervisor Dickinson is in support.
Yes.
Okay, I was thinking we should give him though, maybe till next Thursday, end of business next Thursday to come in with the payment, even though he's ready today.
That's fine.
Okay. Is that fine, Supervisor Stroud, for your motion?
Yes,
And Supervisor Merlino?
Yes.
And County Attorney? It's the 17th.
You just have to have a month in order to.
Okay, she said that's enough time. Okay. Anything else? All right, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that carries. Thank you. Yes, Supervisor, or Chairman Thomas.
I'd just like to thank Madam Chairman and thank the committee for allowing us.
Great. Yeah, we're happy to take his money and help him keep his property.
That sounds better.
There you go.
All right, anything further done? Are there any comments, or whoever's watching, comments on the real property side? Otherwise, we're gonna bounce over.
Sorry, it took me a second to unmute, but at this point, we have no comments on the real property side.
Okay, thank you. Before we do that, actually, Mary, can you give us an update on what's happening with the, sorry, I forgot to ask that a second ago. On what's happening with the foreclosure proceeding?
Yep, sure. So we did go, I think it was Thursday of last week, we actually filed the default judgment with the court. So that is in front of the court right now, but we don't want them to sign that order until this gentleman comes and pays, because his property is included in that judgment. So probably on Thursday, we'll write a new letter to the court and ask them to sign a new judgment, taking that property out of it.
And we expect the court will be able to sign this despite the pandemic and all of the court issues related to that.
Yeah, so with some of the foreclosures, the courts are ordering settlement conferences, but I can't imagine we do this foreclosure every year. The judge knows exactly what we do. I can't imagine they would order a settlement conference for this.
Okay, so let's see, when you call that gentleman, can you just ask him to come in as soon as he can? That way we'll know, and the county attorney's office can get, let the court know too, as soon as possible.
I will be reaching out to him after the meeting is over. And when I did talk to him this morning, he told me he was totally prepared to come in today and pay. So more than likely he'll be in today. And then the county attorney's office will have that information to do what they need with today.
Okay, great. Yeah, assuming the treasurer's office can accommodate them today, that would be great.
Yep, I spoke with Treasurer Swan and he says that they are open out front. He just needs to call in advance.
Okay, great. That's good news too. Thank you, Treasurer Swan.
You're welcome.
All right, yes, Supervisor McGowan.
Thank you, Chairman. Question for our attorney there. How is this foreclosure proceeding? Does this also include the Muller property? I mean, or is that different?
Mullins was filed separately because we actually filed that one before we did our full foreclosure here at the county, thinking that it would be done a lot sooner than the full foreclosure. Obviously, COVID put the stop to those plans. So that is in front of the judge right now, but the judge is making us have a settlement conference on that one before we move forward. But since they don't care about the property, we're hoping they come to the settlement conference and consent to the foreclosure.
Have they been recommended by an attorney? So maybe they can write to the court and let the court know without having, so you can avoid the settlement conference.
Yes, if they're willing to do that.
Yeah. Mike, Treasurer Swan?
Yes, I've talked with Mrs. Mullen last week, I believe it was. She's received the paperwork from the courts, and she will not be doing anything to respond to the court because she does not want to keep the property. If she's called into a settlement conference, she will say that she does not want the property. Please take it.
Okay, all right. That sounds good, thank you. I just don't want to waste the court's time with a settlement conference if she's not, we all know she doesn't want it, so.
Right.
Hopefully, Mary said she will work with that going forward.
Okay.
Okay, on to environmental concerns. We have 2 items on for today. I'm going to take the second one first. The septic inspection at Transfer Law. We didn't attach it today, and I saw that Rob Terwilliger in our county attorney's office did provide some comments back to me, and I haven't had a chance to review them. So we'll do that for the next meeting. We'll incorporate his changes, the things that we talked about last time, and if there's any other changes that people have, please get them to me and Bob within the next week or so that we can get those incorporated and actually talk about this next time. Does anybody, other than Supervisor Beatty, who had comments that he was in support of the law, does anyone else have any comments? Supervisor Dickinson?
I am not interested in this law, Claudia, for a lot of reasons, and I do not want the town of Lake George included in this.
Well, what's your suggestion, Dennis?
Well, we're really active in the town of Lake George. We have a sewer initiative we've been working on for 5 years. We also have some other things cooking in the sidelines, possibly sewering the Bolton Road. And other than that, the law can be difficult for land transactions. And the other thing is, in my experience, I've spent 48 years as an engineer, and private septic systems are one of my biggest portions of my business. Depending on how the law is written, you're not necessarily going to solve any problems by having an engineer come out and look at it and certify whether he thinks, to the best of his ability, it's working. And I just, we're taking care of ourselves. I don't want to be included in it. It's an invasive thing. Our sewer initiative is voluntary.
Great. I know you guys are doing a lot, and you do have septic in the village, sewer in the village.
I don't, this is mandatory. You're telling people they must do this and must do that. I don't want to do it. I don't want to be involved. I don't want the town to be involved.
Just as a point of information, there are other places in the state, like near the Finger Lakes, where they require, there's a mandatory inspection at a regular interval, like every 3 years, not only at transfer.
If you come in now under our sewer initiative, you actually enter into a contract. And the contract has a lot of safeguards about the septic system, the maintenance, and you're required to contact the town on a regular basis about having your system maintained, including pumping out the septic tank. All those things are mandatory and they're continuous, and they go with the property. They don't go with the owner. So we already do that. We're doing that now.
All right, Dennis, maybe you can send me what you guys have. I know Craig sent me their law that's already on the books.
Mm-hmm.
I can take a look at it.
Okay.
All right, Supervisor Stroud, I know you've had your hand up. Thank you for waiting.
Yes, well, one thing, I think the town of Lake George has its own inspection and code enforcement team. And I think this is a law that the intent of which was to go to those municipalities in Warren County that use the services of the county's code enforcement. So, the way I interpret this, it wouldn't have included Lake George anyways, although it doesn't say that.
Right, yeah, it doesn't say that right now.
So I think it could be worded in the sense that it would apply to communities that don't, where the county does the code enforcement for them.
I would support that, Claudia.
Okay, I hear you guys.
Yeah.
Go ahead, John.
All right. The other thing is I don't know, I came prepared to go through some of the items in here. I mean, for example, this would be applicable to residences within 250 feet. It doesn't really, well, for two things on that. CEAs are 500 feet. So who thought of 250 anyhow? CEAs are 500. 500 feet is pretty much the standard around water bodies. So I'm not sure who picked 250. The other thing is, wonder if you have a property that's partially within the 250, but not entirely. Maybe just a small part of it's within the 250. Would that be included? I mean, you could word that as, in part or within, and I would go with the 500 feet because the 250 feet, I don't know who came up with that. 500 feet is pretty much.
John, Ours is 500 feet in Lake
Yeah.
George.
It's
Yeah.
pretty much 500 feet. It's the standard.
Yeah.
The other thing is too, in the law, is when you go to, what's on page 3, G3, it says good faith. Good faith is, an exemption, and it's pretty ambiguous. I don't know if you want to go with a good faith word. Also on page 3, you're asking that your OSWTs be substantially in compliance with Appendix 75A. Let me tell you, the properties around these water bodies, practically none of them are in compliance with 75A. So we ran into that in Queensbury, and I think Bolton ran into it too. You might want to discard that and word that differently, because no properties are going to be substantially within Appendix 75A.
John, what are you guys doing in Queensbury for that? Is that what your law says, that they have to be?
We worded it that that the septic systems have to be functioning in accord with, proper standards. Because, the setbacks and so forth as required in 75A, you're going to find that most of them are violating that. So why even go there?
We do best standard practices. We don't require them to meet all the requirements because they can't. John's spot on with that. So we make them do the best they can with what they have.
And I thought that was the intent, is that they have to have it functioning per best standard practices that were applicable at the time it was, say, installed, as long as it's still functioning.
Correct. We have one system is a double tertiary. That's 3 phases, and it's not once but twice. And it's discharging probably within 20 to 25 feet from Class A, AA special stream. But the effluent you're discharging is along with everything else is sterilized, and it has double tertiary treatment. You can't get much better than that. So that's a point in case it doesn't meet that setback requirement, and
Right, and some of it has to be determined by the engineer and their assessment.
Absolutely. What we do is they prepare plans and they bring them in and we review them. The Consolidated Board of Health reviews them. We review them for compliance. Sometimes we send them back and say, no, you got to do something different. But there's a lot of new things out there that are great treatment devices. Septic tanks and tile fields are old school. They're passé.
Especially around the lake.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I've got more.
Oh, go ahead, John.
All right, on page 5, which is H1, section H, paragraph 1, subparagraph B. In the middle of B, you say that will require a security deposit. How much?
Don't say I say this. This I took from Bolton and Queensbury and mushed it together.
No, well, we put together a solid dollar amount, because if you leave it open, is it going to be $2, $2,000, $20,000? And if you're politically connected, then yours is going to be $2. And the Joe down the street that might be of another political party, he's going to be $20,000. All right, well, you can avoid all that by putting a fixed figure in there, okay?
Okay, what did you guys use?
Queensbury uses 2,000.
Okay.
What's that for, John?
That is if, let's say, climate conditions, you can't put the system in, then, all right, give us 2,000 up front, and when you put your system in, we'll return your 2,000. It's just kind of insurance to make sure it happens.
Okay, thanks.
That's like if they say that they are not going to bring it up to compliance before the transfer, but they're going to do it afterwards.
Okay, so,
Is that correct, John?
what's that?
Is Claudia correct?
What'd you say, Claudia?
Like, for instance, if they're saying they were going to demo the house and build a whole new system, septic system, but they wouldn't do it before the transfer, it would be after the transfer, that's why you're having deposit?
That's another situation we list in our property transfer law where you can put up the monies and we'll return it after the system gets completed. Plus you won't get your CO either, but. Okay, and then the fine on page 8, which is L paragraph 3, the fine is only $500? Well, $500, good, I'll pay the fine, okay? I'm just, it's $950 in the town just to keep it in the town, but I think it should be more than 500.
Okay.
And the other thing, your appendix A, your list of water bodies,
Yeah,
there's a lot of lakes that are connected to those water bodies that weren't included. So what you're saying is you can pollute those lakes, which run into this lake, and you are enforcing it in this lake, but not the other lake. In other words, they're hydrologically connected. Well, I mean, especially the biggest one that disturbed me would be Trout Lake. Trout Lake dumps into Lake George. Why don't we have why isn't Trout Lake on the list, for example?
well, that's something we haven't gotten a consensus about yet. I mean, if we're gonna take out Queensbury, Lake George, Bolton, and Chester, maybe we do say it applies throughout the rest of the towns in the county and forget the appendix A and just make it 500 feet within all the water bodies.
All right, well, those are some of my thoughts, first thoughts anyways.
Thank you, John, for going through it carefully. Supervisor Simpson?
So in the town of Hurricane, the town board acts as its sanitary board of health. And we approve these systems. And if there's a recommendation at the time of a transfer for a change in the septic system, is it still going to be going through the town of Hurricane, or is it going to be going through Warren County? How is that going to work? Because our town has that responsibility now.
Right. There are other towns that are that way too. And my understanding is that it would still need to go through the town Board of Health.
Board of Health.
In some manner. I think that's some of the details that we're still working out though. I think that Chris Belden had mentioned that. How to make that interplay work. What's your suggestion?
Well, I'm just trying to figure out how that's going to work for somebody who's in the middle of a transaction, is trying to comply with the law and dealing with town regs, county regs, a county law, how that's going to impact.
Do we then say if you get your CO or whatever or your certificate of compliance with the septic system from the county, you don't need to go to the town Board of Health? How are the towns going to feel about that?
I'm not sure, because there's also APA approval,
Right.
which can be quite
a whole
lengthy.
nother
There's at least 30
layer.
days there.
Yeah.
There's variances involved also with
Right.
any changes.
Or even,
Which is another-
or even a replacement. Depends.
Who's stricter, APA or town?
We can't be less restrictive than the APA. The APA has
Right.
that's a loaded question there.
Yeah.
No, I always thought the town law superseded because it was usually a stricter guidance than APA.
Well, APA reviews
Correct.
any
Right.
determinations that we make, and they either approve or they don't. They usually approve Queensberry's, but once in a while they don't.
We went through the APA with ours. We redid our sanitary ordinance. When I came in, it was ridiculous. And we redid it. The APA was a pain. They were a nuisance about it, and they made some changes, made us make some changes to our sanitary ordinance that I was not happy with. They're very, very restrictive.
Okay,
It's
Supervisor
impractical.
Allen?
The geology.
Yes, thank you. I think Supervisor Dickinson said it, you know, if you have certain things in place in your town that you already do, and how you did the procedure that you do it, we should word it where those towns still keep the procedure. Like, you know, Orcon has their way of, you know, of doing stuff. It's really just to get all the other areas, so, you know, the law, so we get these inspections to make sure it's safe. But I mean, you know, like Matt, Dennis, they know what they need in their town. Queensbury has adapted it well, and it seems to be going over well. I agree with the 500 feet over the 250, because that 250 is not enough, especially on rock ledges and stuff that we have going down to the lake. Or lakes, but I, you know, would that help you out, Matt, is being able to?
Supervisor Simpson?
I think what I had envisioned when it was one of my former residents of the town of Oregon that represented the Adirondack Lakes Association, a Lakes Alliance, that brought this forward, is that we would have brought in people that were most affected by this around the lakes, because this is targeted around the lakes within 500 feet or 250 feet. And that really hasn't happened. So I think that, you know, specifically to my community, my two lake associations, actually 3 lake associations, we've worked very collaboratively with to on new initiatives to promote water quality within our Stream Lake watershed, Brant Lake watershed. And they put in thousands of volunteer hours every single year. And while I support this concept, and I believe everybody there around the lake support this concept, I think there's a lot of questions and a lot of issues that we need to vet out there and build support and consensus for this. That's how I had envisioned this process to begin.
Yeah. Claudia?
Yes. Go ahead.
To address some of Matt's concerns, we have the same concerns here in the town of Queensbury. So before I had a public hearing on the proposed law, I had some public hearings on that topic with presentations on how do septic systems work and everything else, because surprisingly, a lot of people don't know. And they're not aware of the functioning of the system. They're not aware of the damage in terms of environmental damage a faulty septic system can do. So we had several public meetings where it was educational in nature, and we took input to them. We kind of outlined what we wanted to do, where we wanted to go, and then we took input from them. So, you know, the property transfer law that we ended up with was a result of some of their input. Not only that, but having them be part of the process, having them understand where we're trying to go, what we're trying to do, was an important part of getting them on board as far as accepting this new law. I think the county should have to do the same thing.
Right. We did have some working group meetings early on with Ed from the Lake Association and some realtors from local realty companies, but we can certainly reach out and do more of that outreach and collaborative process to get more people on board with where we're trying to go, which I think is protecting the quality of our lakes, the water quality of our lakes, and understanding more of the intricacies of each municipality's difficulties. So I'd be happy to have wholesome public information meetings of that nature.
I'd be willing to share my PowerPoints with anybody that wanted to do that.
Great, thank you, John. Yeah, we can do it by Zoom. I think that might actually draw more people from broader parts of the county. And if you guys would share that with your contacts in the local associations, like Supervisor Simpson said, that would be great.
Claudia, it's Andrea.
Yes. Supervisor Hogan?
There's also a PowerPoint that was put out by the county planning department.
That's right. They did do a PowerPoint presentation for this committee not too long ago.
Right.
That's right. Chris Belden put that together. All right, Supervisor Simpson, did you have anything further? Does that sound like a good approach?
No, I think it's a great approach. I think that it's recognizing the amount of effort that, this precedent, in Horicon, we work with 2 counties, 3 lake associations, 3 towns, and it's worked very well. And I think you really have to, with something like this, you've got to identify all of the issues. And there's going to be a lot of people that have not been involved and not heard of this that are going to be very apprehensive about all of a sudden finding out that there's a septic law. That's one of the issues. People are concerned about the unknown. They don't know. And I think educating them, they want to do the right thing. And I think there's a potential here to do something great. And I think we need to build that consensus within our communities.
All right, I agree. Let's do that. All right, anything further on this? Okay. Along the lines of protecting our water quality, a resolution, a proposed template resolution was forwarded to me. And since we were having this committee meeting, I put it on the agenda. It is a resolution to support the amendment to the New York State Constitution for a provision that would add a citizen right to clean air and water and a healthful environment. The resolution, I changed it a little bit to add information for Warren County specifically. You can see that in your packet.
I'll move it.
Thank you, Supervisor Hogan. Okay, and second by Supervisor Stroud. Any discussion? Go ahead, Supervisor Simpson.
Thank you. Not having any information prior to this amendment, this is an amendment to the New York State Constitution. I think there's a lot of unanswered questions. I actually called Kathy Pedler this morning from the Adirondack Mountain Club for more information, and she did send it to me. I haven't had time to review some of the points that they have published, but I would like to know. I mean, there's to pass something and not know what the impacts are or what we're trying to do. I mean, it sounds great. We're all supporting clean water, clean air, and healthy environment, but we've seen where, as an example, Lake George, where they have, they're trying to comply with current regs, and they don't have the funding to pay for that. I know that I get reports on, overflows on outdated septic or sewer systems infrastructure into the Hudson River that, what are we doing to address these? And if we pass something that's even stronger, more compliant, or, something without addressing the needs of those communities, I'm not sure we're headed in the right direction. I think what we need to do is focus on how we're going to help these communities comply with clean water standards right now. I've heard this throughout. There's numerous municipalities that are struggling with, they're still paying for the last infrastructure upgrades that they did to comply with clean water standards. And now they're being mandated to comply with current standards. And there's no financial ability to provide for those upgrades. I think there isn't anybody that I've met that isn't in support of clean water and clean air. But we need to do more than just, hammer down on municipalities or organizations without providing for a mechanism to pay for those.
Right. I think that no one is going to disagree. We need clean water, clean air, and a healthy environment. It's the economic driver of our region. And this particular provision does not add any regulatory burdens. There are no additional requirements that are required by the municipality. So I am fully in support of this. Supervisor Dickinson?
I'm going to agree with Matt for two reasons. He's absolutely right about it's the Village of Lake George under mandate. So they mandated them, and some of the standards in that mandate are above and beyond state standards. And they arbitrarily are holding them to those standards. And then on the other hand, they're not helping sufficiently with the financing. The mayor struggled royally trying to get financing for this thing. He's done a very great job, and he's got a considerable amount, but in the end, the burden of that's going to come on the taxpayers. There's less than 1,000 people in the whole village of Lake George, men, women, and children. Secondly, to that point, Claudia, the biggest user for the village is the town. The town sewage system, we have a collection system, and we discharge it to their sewage plant. So we ultimately will pay half the bill. And it's a real burden on the taxpayers. There are areas in Lake George that are not on the lake, and subsequently aren't that well off, and it's going to hurt them. This is really going to hurt. The other thing is, I've had some conversations from some of our legislators, and I would like to see this thing tabled. I have not had sufficient time to really look into it.
I understand that. I'm going to not take that as a motion to table at this minute because I want to give Supervisor Stroud an opportunity. Okay, Dennis?
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Supervisor Stroud.
Well, thank you. I too emailed Kathy Pedler from ADK back and showed her a speech I gave a couple of years ago, and Claudia, I think you were there, where I spoke to the need for a 29th Amendment, 28th being an equal rights amendment. But the 29th Amendment would be the promotion of our environmental rights. And I'm not going to go through everything that I said at my speech. Kathy liked the speech, but, you know, to address Dennis's and Matt's concerns, this isn't something that's going before the legislature. This is a concept, and it's going to need a lot more hammering, and this is just the beginning of it, and that's the way I look at it. And if you kind of support the ideology of it, then, and that's the way I look at it, then I would support this, and I would urge your support too. But I don't mind tabling it to give everybody a longer chance to look at it. But I'm not looking at it a word by word. This is what's actually going to be an amendment to New York State's Constitution. I'm looking at it as a concept, an ideology that I do support.
Thank you, Supervisor. I don't think we need.
Claudia, it's Andrea.
I'm going to let Supervisor Simpson, and then you'll be up, Andrea.
I just, like I said, I got this email to me from Kathy on the way here, and just in one statement, it says the Green Amendment offers a paradigm shift in the way environmental protection is addressed. I'd like to know what that paradigm shift is, and the impacts of changing or adding, including language into the New York State Constitution. I think that's a fair question.
I can certainly ask Kathy to come zoom in and speak to us at a future meeting. I think she would be happy to do that. Supervisor Hogan.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I agree with Supervisor Stroud that what we're doing is discussing a conceptual agreement here, and I'm a little disturbed at some of my colleagues who want to throw up barriers to better environmental protections. We're lucky here in Warren County. We have an abundance of air and fresh water, but we have neighbors in nearby towns who've learned really hard lessons about the fragility of their environment. We hear and read about places like Flint, Michigan, and Hinckley, California, and they've taught us that contaminated water is a public health and safety issue. We read widely published studies that show us air pollution directly causes hundreds of thousands of cases of cancer deaths every year. these aren't only a public health issue, but they also have tremendous economic impact. So yeah, I support this amendment. I'm going to let the particulars get hammered out at a level other than ours. I believe that clean air and clean water is an inalienable right. And I think this amendment sets the standard exactly where it should be for public and private decision making. And as I've stated before, especially when we were talking about the plastic bag ban, I believe Warren County should continue their proud history of leadership when it comes to environmental advocacy. And I'd like to see us get out in front of this and kind of put our legislation where our words are. We tout ourselves as, the New York's premier outdoor recreation destination. We have the Queen of American Lakes. I think we should be standing up proud and tall and supporting this amendment and encouraging everyone else to follow. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Hogan. I am right behind you. If I'm allowed to say that from the podium. What do you guys want to do? We do have a meeting at the end of September.
I suggest we table it. If Claudia, if you can get Kathy to speak to the committee, I think that would be helpful.
Okay. All right, I can ask her.
I'll second.
All right, I don't think we need an official motion. I'll just put it on for a discussion item at the next meeting.
Supervisor Stroud did make a motion to table, and I second it.
Okay. Did you make that motion, Supervisor Stroud?
Yes, but, and I seconded the previous motion. I don't know if we have to address that, but I don't think we do with the tabling motion. So yeah, my tabling motion stands.
Okay, and we have a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that carries. I do plan to bring it up at the next meeting. And I'll ask Kathy in the meantime if she can make it, whatever our date is. I don't have that yet. It'll be after our board meeting. And is Don Weeman on there? He is. Don, I'm going to ask if there's any comments.
No, Chairwoman Raymer, there are no comments on YouTube as of this point.
All right. Any further comments from supervisors or anything else to bring up before we adjourn? All right. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Supervisor Dickinson, seconded by Simpson. All those in favor?
Aye.
You guys have a great day.
You too. Good job, Claudia.
Thanks, Dennis. We'll talk.